We're reaching the end of season one, so episode 65 begins at the Black Pyramid. So the next thing we see is Mumm-ra leaving the pyramid, and as always, he is in his monstrous form. So even though we didn't see it, but he changed into one. So the next thing he did was to go to the cave, and now you're probably wondering why is he heading there? Well, as any bad guy would do, he decided to come up with a new plan to get rid of the Thundercats, of course. So you're probably wondering what was Mumm-ra's plan to destroy the Thundercats once and for all? Why to create pictures of the most vulnerable enemies that the Thundercats have faced before? So what better way to do it? So that's what Mumm-ra's doing. So, one at a time, Mumm-ra had conjured all of the pictures of the bad guys that the Thundercats had faced during their stay on the Earth. First up is Sly, the leader of the mutants, and with his warp gas grenade, of course. The next picture that Mumm-ra had conjured up is Spidera, the Queen of Eight Lakes, that the Thundercats had defeated 31 episodes ago. Next up is Safari Joe. Now remember, Lionel defeated him in episode 24. That's 41 episodes ago. Then, long story short, Mumm-ra had pleaded himself a case. He thought, why not save the best bad guy for last, Ratoro, and his red size, of course. So now that all of the pictures are all set up, now according to Mumm-ra, here comes a problem. How to lure Lionel into a trap such as this. So he decided that he'll do what he knows best, create a disguise. So what better way to have a disguise than with Dr. Dome? You remember him from episode 21. So what Mumm-ra did first is that, long story short, after transforming into his monstrous form, he came up with the disguise of Dr. Dome, one of the Thundercats' friends. So he did. So Mumm-ra, now disguised as Dr. Dome, is on his mission. Meanwhile, we see Lionel and Snarf. They were looking for Dundrillium. So Snarf jumped out from out of nowhere and having food in his mouth. So Lionel was telling Snarf, we don't have time to eat right now. We gotta find Thundrillium. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll split up and then we'll meet up later. So Snarf was complaining about working every time and not having any fun. We'll have fun a little later after we've done all the work, Lionel suggested. So Snarf and Lionel head off. So back with Lionel, he was using the Thundrillium locator, and then he heard a voice saying, "Greetings from under the sea." And that's when Lionel knew it was Dr. Dome. So after he heard, and that's when Lionel approached him. He said, "What brings you by? I hope the plug's okay." "It's fine, Lionel," Dr. Dome said. Not only that, Dr. Don't just told Lionel that everything is fine. And he says, well, I got a surprise for you and your friends. So why not an expedition? Now Lionel is really confused. He says, what expedition? So Dr. Don't explains that it's a tribute to Lionel and his friends. Did you say a tribute? Lionel asked. Now Lionel sensed that something was off but decided to think nothing of it. Well, back with Dr. he not only told Lionel that yes, that he did, and then asked him to follow him. So Lionel agrees. Back with Snarf, he knew that there was something off with Dr. But he doesn't know why. But being curious, that's when he decided to investigate anyway. So that's what Snarf did. So, back with Snarf, the good news is that he made it to the cave. Now here comes the bad news. He just couldn't get in because he didn't make it in time. Unless, of course, he had a plan. And what was Snarf's plan? He had to get Lionel's friends to get Lionel out of there. So he heads off. So back with Lionel and Dr. Dontone, or so he thought, they went inside the cave. So Dr. Dontone told Lionel that this is for him and his friends. What for? Lionel said. Well, Dr. Dontone says, since you fought all the bad guys, including Mumm-ra himself, we decided to make this a tribute to you and your friends, he said. Lionel has never seen pictures like that before. There's one of Spidera, Safari Joe, Slides, and Ratoro. until when Lionel's steward had told him that there was something wrong. One of the pictures that had Safari Joe just came to life. So Lionel decided to protect Dr. Tone Tone the best way he knew how, or so he thought. Then what Lionel seen was unbelievable. A picture of Safari Joe coming to life. And if that's not fascinating enough, that's when Safari Joe comes out of the picture to meet up with Lionel. Now remember, Lionel had defeated Safari Joe since episode 24. So now he's face to face with Safari Joe for the second time, only not the real deal, but the one from the picture. Well, long story short, things didn't look so good for Lionel as watching it happen with Dr. Dometome, or so he thought. So back with Safari Joe, who just earlier came from the picture, he just pleaded his case with Lionel, but then Lionel says, not so fast. So he did what any good guy would do, use his sword's power, and so he landed on the ledge from the ground. So he did. So, meanwhile, Lionel and Safari Joe are now having round two of the fight. So, Safari Joe attacks first, but then Lionel dodges all of the Safari Joe's attacks again and again and again. And then the fight just went on and on and on and on and on. So long story short, back with Safari Joe, now that his gun had ran out of bullets, so now it's just him and Safari Joe. Lionel, that is. So back with Lionel, he told Safari Joe looks like his gun had ran out on him, to coin a phrase. So Lionel did what any good guy would do. He uses his sword on the rocks. So that's what he did. Now Safari Joe, when he saw what had happened, he was in shock. He said, wait a minute, I'm the hunter, remember? But instead, when he saw that the rocks are coming towards him, he ran off and went right back into the painting where he belonged. So long story short, back with Lionel, good news for him, he had finished his battle with Safari Joe. But wait, he has a bigger problem. He's now going face to face with Ratoro, and Ratoro comes out of the picture, just like what Safari Joe did. So we've meet again, Lionel, Ratoro said, and just like what Safari Joe did, he came out of the picture. The long story short, what Ratoro did is that he uses his dress size on Lionel. So what Ratoro did next was unbelievable. With the use of his dress eyes, Lionel was levitated, and then he spun him around and around. Ratoro, that is, and with his dress eyes on Lionel. Still watching it happen was Dr. Dometone, or so Lionel thought, but Lionel had no idea that Dr. Dometone was a fake, at least not yet anyway. Things are looking bad for Lionel as he continues to levitate and spinning around and around, thanks to Ratoro, who was in control. So back with Lionel, long story short, just when things were looking bad, his eyes started to glow. And if that's not fascinating enough, what Lionel did next was unbelievable. He broke free from Ratoro's control. When Ratoro saw it, he couldn't believe it. He was in shock. So what Lionel did next is that he uses his claw shield and his claw line and disarms Ratoro. So after Ratoro was disarmed, what Lionel did next is that he picks Ratoro up and lifts him over his head. And after he did that, he throws Ratoro back into his painting, Lionel that is. So back with Dr. Tome Tome, or so Lionel thought, who congratulated him. And that's when by surprise, yes, unfortunately for Lionel, he should have seen this coming that Dr. Dometome was Mumm-ra in disguise. So after Mumm-ra finished his transformation, and that's when Lionel says, I should have known you were behind all this. I knew it was you. Then Mumm-ra had asked the question, do you really think that these creatures of theirs will go through all the trouble to build this museum? He asked. So, after Murmur pleaded his case with Lionel that the conception will be his downfall and he'll be fighting him. Well, if that's so, Lionel says, I beat you before, and I'll do it again, he said. So, before that battle can begin, that's when Murmur had pleaded his case with Lionel to ask a question. How about a dose of warp gas first? So, what Murmur did is that he took the picture of a warp gas from Sly, the leader of the mutants that was also in the picture, and throws it at Lino. So long story short, back with Mumm-ra, he pleaded a case with Lionel. Let's see if you can fight me. If you can. But because of the effects of the warp gas, Lionel just couldn't do a thing about it, and he said that he can't because he's too scared to fight. So back with Mumm-ra, as he approaches closer and closer and closer to Lionel, who was terrified at the moment, he pleaded his case to insult and to mock him. The next thing Mumm-ra did is that he uses his power to attack Lionel. So after Lionel saw a cave up ahead, he goes in and hides as Mumm-ra continues to get closer and closer. So back with Snarf, he runs to catch up with the Thunder Tank, and driving it is Panthro. So Snarf says, "Hey Panthro, wait up! Slow down!" But when Panthro didn't listen, that's when Snarf continues to catch up to the Thunder Tank. And when he eventually did, he climbed on the back of the tank after jumping on it. So back with the Thunder Tank, it had finally arrived at the cat's lair, with Snarf still hanging on the back. When Panthro got out of the tank, he saw Snarf that was there. He says, "What are you doing there?" Well, Snarf just told Panthro the bad news. He said Lionel's in serious trouble. So Panthro, after he heard the bad news, he says, "Well, let's get the rest of the Thundercats and let's go." So he did. So Panthro got into the tank first, and then Chitara, then Tigra, then the Thunderkins, then lastly Snarf. So the Thunder Tank heads to the cave. Oh, I made a slip up. The Thunderkins are on their spaceports, so that's my bad. So anyway, the Thunder Tank and of course a couple spaceports with the Thunderkins had arrived at the cave, and that's where Lionel is right now. Well, luckily for Tigra, he uses the cannon of the Thunder Tank, so it blasted its way in. So the tank's now inside, and so are the Thunderkins with a couple of spaceports. So back inside the cave, we have Lionel and Mumm-ra. Now Lionel is still affected by the warp gas, and so Mumm-ra just told Lionel that his friends had arrived. So after Lionel had pleaded a case with Mumm-ra to tell him not to hurt him, so Mumm-ra pleaded a case that it was thanks to the warp gas that Lionel is no longer brave. He's a coward. So back with Lionel's friends, we have Ford in the Thunder Tank, we have Snarf, Panthro, Chitara, and Tigra, and a couple of Thunderkins on their spaceports. Well, good news, they have arrived in the cave, but they don't see Lionel anywhere. So the Thundercats seen all the pictures: Slythe, Ratoro, Spidera, and Safari Joe. So Tigra has a suspicious thought. If I'm not mistaken, this gallery must be created by Mumm-ra himself. And in Tigra's case, he's not wrong. Now, Wildcat has his turn to suggest that maybe Lionel's around somewhere. So he and his sister goes to the picture to where Spidera is. Well, Panther tried to warn him, but unfortunately, for some unknown reason, the Spidera's painting came to life. Back with Wily Cat, he wanted to know what is going on. Well, Chitara was more than happy to answer that. She says that for some reason the painting of Spidera just came to life. And wouldn't you know it, she was soon proven right. And back with Wily Cat, he tries to get away, but Spidera decides to wrap him in her webs. But luckily for Wily Cat, who's Wily Cat's sister, she manages to save him when she did. And good thing she did. So after the kittens got away from the Spidera's painting, it's no longer alive anymore. So luckily for the Thunderkins, they made their escape, but now here comes a problem. One of the adult Thundercats had pleaded their cases to say, if that painting is still alive, then the rest are too, and they suspected that Lionel must be in each and every one of them. But they had no idea that Lionel's not in any of those paintings. So decided to play it on a hunch anyway. That means Panthro, Chitara, Tigra, and Snarf will go into the painting with Spidera, while the kittens will go into the painting with Safari Joe. So that's what they did. So long story short, back with Lionel, who just woke up after the attack, he felt really, really weird. So he realizes that the effects of the warp gas had just worn off. So back with Pedro, Tiger, Chitara, and Snarf in the Thunder Tank, they went right into Spidera's painting, in the Kingdom of Webs, of course. Next is the Thunderkins' turn. They went inside a painting with Safari Joe. So back with the Thunder Tank, it had just made it inside Spidera's painting with the Kingdom of Webs. So there they were. Now remember, the Thundercats had defeated Spidera once before, back in episode 34. So long story short, back with the kittens, they're now in a painting that has Safari Joe. Now remember, Lionel had defeated him back in episode 24. So there's Safari Joe in the bushes right now. So, long story short, back with the Thunderkins, whose Space Force had gotten out of control just like they did in episode 24. And that's when they were, by surprise, being captured by Safari Joe, just like they did the first time. Well, now it's their second. So back with Lionel, now back to himself, now that the warp gas has worn off, he now realizes that his friends were missing. The kids are in the painting of Safari Joe. The rest are in the painting with Spidera. But wait, that's not all. What Lionel saw next was unbelievable. A statue. And it just appeared out of nowhere. Now, as Lionel was looking at the statue very carefully, it said, quote, Lionel, the one-time Lord of the Thundercats. Now you could tell that Lionel's not exactly happy about it. So back with Lionel, who was very disgusted and upset, he just said, well, we'll just see about that. And the next thing you know, Mumm-ra appeared. So Mumm-ra asked Lionel a question. Do you like my art collection? So when Lionel demanded Mumm-ra to free his friends right away from these pictures, that's when Mumm-ra refused. And what he did next was unbelievable. He goes into the statue of Lionel that just recently came out of nowhere. So he's the one in red, by the way. And so what Lionel in red did is that he's challenging Lionel, the one in blue, to a sword fight. So that's what they both did. Both good guy Lionel in blue and bad Lionel in red. So during round one of the fight, it just went on and on and on and on and on. Now, as you can see, both good guy Lionel and bad guy Lionel each have a claw shield. That's interesting. Then, long story short, during round two of the fight, the sword combat continues to go on and on and on and on and on between good guy Lionel in blue and bad guy Lionel in red. So what they both did is that they uses their claw shield's claw line. So they continue to have their combat in midair, of course. So that's exactly what they did. So, long story short, back with good guy Lino, well, good news, he landed on the ground. But so did bad guy Lino in red. So it's time for round three of the combat. And it just went on and on and on and on and on. Then suddenly, good guy Lino just realized that there's something about the bad guy Lino. He has everything that the good guy Lino has: cunning, strength, and everything else. Everything is the same. Then Jugga appears out of nowhere and told good guy Lionel that his hunch is correct, that bad guy Lionel has everything that the good guy Lionel has. But wait, there's more. Jugga also told good guy Lionel that everything that the good guy Lionel has is the same. It's the mirror image of himself. So after that, he disappeared. So after Jugga disappeared, good guy Lionel knows what to do. He uses his claw shield as a reflection. And guess what? There's only one thing that bad guy Lionel hates, just like what Mumm-ra did, his own reflection. So guess what Lionel did? He shows the reflection to bad guy Lionel, who, by surprise, was Mumm-ra. So after that was finished, Mumm-ra was defeated by his own reflection, by Lionel's sword, of course. So after he went back to his mummified form, that's when Lionel told Mumm-ra to go back to your pyramid where you belong. So he did. So once again, Mumm-ra's plan backfired thanks to Lionel. But there's only one thing that Lionel has to do next. He does what any good guy would do: use the Thundercat signal from his sword. And when he did, the Thundercats, Panthro, Chitara, Tiger, and Snarf, and the Thunder Tank had ejected themselves out of Spidera's painting. Next are the Thundercats. They are free from the painting of Safari Joe. So all seven Thundercats are together once again. So now that everyone's united, that's when Snarf went first to please Case Delino. Well, it's about time you've got here. Well, you know what this means. It's now time for everyone to leave the cave. So they did. So meanwhile, back at Kessler, but this time in the meeting room, we have Lionel, Chitara, Tigra, Panther, the kittens, and Snarf. So now that everyone's in the meeting room, that's when Panther went first to say, "Hey, we've been looking all over for you, Snarf." So Tiger pleaded his case. It was thanks to Lino. They took care of Spidera with a little help from Chitara and Panther on the way. And let's not forget, it was Lino who helped the Thunderkins escape from Safari Joe. And better than that, according to Lionel, when it's his turn to plead his case, when he told Snarf, "I did promise you we have fun," but Snarf seems very depressed. So Lionel asked, "What's the matter? Aren't you going to have some fun?" "Well, thanks, but no thanks," Snarf said. "After that, I'm pretty much wore out. You know something? Snarf's not kidding. But what about Mumm-ra? Will the Thundercats be seeing the last of him?" So there's only one thing left to find out. So that ends episode 65. Thank you for watching season 1 of Thundercats, but don't go away. I got season 2 on the way.